How can you pronounce a passion you've never participated in?
Love is a foreign dialect I haven't mastered yet. It's hard to conjugate compassion when my vocab has been rooted in absence. My emotions get stuck in the back of my throat like an R I can't roll. My family and I don't speak the same language. Love is the empty pot on my grandmother's stove. It's the songs me and my grandfather sing on road trips. It's my mother not knowing how to say it consistently. My father stays out of my life. And I'm starting to think that's love too.
I never write about love.
Don't really know how. Thought giving love was to be perfect instead of a person, to be small enough to fit inside of someone's projection. I was down bad.
Requesting love from those who ain't even got it.
Pleading to people please. Had people who took the parts of me they wanted to see.
Told me they loved me, but maybe that is love. Maybe I'm the mirror that doesn't turn people away, the one that doesn't shatter when they scream into it.
The love language that spoke to me the most was silence.
Acceptance is practiced rather than spoken. Words without action is just imagination. I loved people for what they said they could do before they did it. Attachment and connections are not the same thing. One is the fear of being apart, and the other is knowing you'll always be together. I never learned the difference.
I used to be scared to love people. I love you. Always felt like a promise. The only way to love someone is forever. So what happens?
When the human parts of our being get tired of growing together,
We are not stationary life forces. We are forces of life starved in states of stagnancy. We move, we change. We don't always need the same people present in every present.
Even so,
my teammates bring a smile to my soul.
Bearing my shadows be met with bare hugs, and I seen the meanest mug to anyone disrespected me and my people. I show my loved ones, their loved ones, when they ask me how I'm doing, and I tell the truth, even though it feels like trying to cough up a mountain.
Blood may be thicker than water,
but it isn't stronger than ink.
Immortalize my friends with pens and capture them without confinement. I got wealth and emotional health.
Got a group of people worth staying on this planet with.
Homies, we share food, we don't got it like that. Fill each other's cups until they overflow, and my homies know spending time alone is how I love myself. No, we can grow closer or grow apart as long as we still grow.
And we don't all gotta go together to grow together.
A person's journey to self-discovery does not mean I'm losing them. It means they're finding themselves. And our fondness for familiar faces is a form of fear. One day, we all must travel far away. I thought I found my soul tribe.
Until I realized my tribe is a part of my soul.
And every person I ever meet is never separate from me, but an extension of me, experiencing life in different phases and places,
and love never leaves.
Even when people do.
Good afternoon. My deep thanks to the 4 artists who shared their stories and their voices with us. And thank you for joining us this afternoon. My name is Rachel Garbo-Monroe, and I have the pleasure and the privilege of serving as the Weinberg Foundation's President and CEO. We hope you have had a good day so far. We hope you are feeling well, and we hope you can sit back, relax, and enjoy this very special time together. I am only sorry that this gathering is being streamed live and that we are unable to be together in person with more than 1,400 colleagues, friends, and partners who RSVP'd that they would join us for this gathering. When COVID forced the cancellation of last year's gathering, which would have also marked the Foundation's 30th anniversary, we assumed that a year later, in the fall of 2021, we would surely be all together in person at our community gatherings in Baltimore, Honolulu, and Tel Aviv. Yet here we are again, still living and working in this hybrid, remote, virtual world. We are, of course, disappointed, but we are also thankful to at least be with all of you live by live stream. We are especially thrilled that so many of you are watching this right now, including colleagues, friends, and partners from across the United States, from Hawaii, and from Israel. We have safely gathered the Foundation's trustees and Baltimore employees in Baltimore, and we are delighted that our colleagues in Hawaii are watching this live stream as well, also observing all necessary health precautions. The primary purpose of the Foundation's community gathering is to say thank you, especially to the Foundation's grantees and partners. So thank you, mahalo, and toda rabah for working with the Weinberg Foundation. Thank you for all you do to make our communities stronger and better for every individual and every family. And thank you again for making the time to join us this afternoon for this virtual celebration. Now it is my pleasure to introduce the chair of the Foundation's board, Ambassador Faye Hartog-Levin.
Thank you, Rachel. I'm privileged to speak to you today on behalf of my fellow Weinberg trustees, who represent several of the Foundation's priority communities. Robert T. Kelly from Northeastern Pennsylvania, Paula Pretlow from the San Francisco Bay Area, Gordon Berlin from New York, and Nimrod Gur from Israel. I have the honor of representing Chicago. Our nation and our world continue to mark slow progress in the battle against COVID. Despite the availability of safe and effective vaccines, COVID remains an unprecedented international health crisis. Still, we move forward with hope and resolve, and for the Weinberg Foundation, that means supporting our nonprofit partners who help to meet the basic needs of people experiencing poverty. To date, the Weinberg Foundation has provided a total of nearly $25 million in COVID response funding. This amount includes a one-time automatic renewal process for 60 core grantees, totaling $6.6 million across all 5 focus areas, with the goal of alleviating fundraising pressures. In addition, the Foundation provided $7.5 million in grants to community development financed institutions, known as CDFIs, which have been able to provide nonprofits with flexible and zero-interest capital, with a particular focus on strengthening nonprofits led by or serving Black, Indigenous, and people of color. The Foundation has also sought to provide COVID-19 relief in other ways. As many of you know, the Foundation owns more than $1 billion in Hawaii real estate, which, as a part of the Foundation's total assets of $3.2 billion, helps to fund our philanthropic work. However, the pandemic has been especially damaging to Hawaii's economy. In response, the Foundation actively engaged with and supported its tenants in Hawaii, in many cases small businesses, which demonstrated need for assistance in the form of deferred or reduced rent. The Foundation's board also approved the gifting of land to nonprofits in Hawaii to support affordable housing and food security needs within the community. Regarding Foundation operations, we have launched a new interactive online grants database and digital map to help see firsthand the work the Foundation is supporting across the United States and in Israel. If you formally RSVP'd to this event prior to October 20th, you were given the option to provide a mailing address to receive a package from the Foundation to enjoy during this virtual community gathering. For those of you who have that box, the Weinberg Foundation's famous cookies are inside, and on that cookie box you will find a QR code that you can simply scan with your phone to be linked to the new database. Everyone else, and at any time, you can simply visit the Foundation's website and click on Grants, where you will find the database and map. Before we move to the next part of this afternoon's agenda, I want to acknowledge the resilience and resolve of the entire Weinberg Foundation staff over the past 20 months. Both Foundation offices seamlessly transitioned to remote work and continued to advance the Foundation's important mission. Like all of you watching live stream, we have learned to adapt and pivot to get things done. Congratulations to everyone for executing the work of your organizations without skipping a beat. On behalf of the thousands of community members of your organizations collectively served, thank you. And now it's my pleasure to introduce our next segment, a conversation with our featured speaker, Dr. Albert Borla. Dr. Borla is Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of Pfizer. You may also review Dr. Borla's full bio on the Foundation webpage where we are hosting this live stream. I had the opportunity to sit down with Dr. Borla for a wide-ranging discussion, from the battle against COVID to his parents' remarkable Holocaust survival story in Greece. We hope you'll enjoy meeting Dr. Borla as much as I did. Thank you so much for taking time to talk with us. On behalf of the Harry and Jeanette Weinberg Foundation, we're honored to have you as our special guest at this year's Biennial gathering.
Oh, thank you, Ambassador. First of all, great honor for me and also a great opportunity to meet you in person.
And it's nice to be here with you in Connecticut, which, as I told you, is very close to my hometown as well. But first of all, can you tell us a little bit about your early career and your path to Pfizer?
Yes, I was born and raised in second largest city of Greece, Thessaloniki, and I always, what I wanted to do was to have an academic career. I studied veterinary medicine, and then I did a PhD because I wanted to stay in the university. While I was waiting for, after my PhD, for a permanent position to open, Pfizer was looking for someone, and they approached me and they insisted to take the job. And although I was very reluctant in the beginning, somehow they convinced me, and I saw it like a sabbatical. I saw that that would be a break in my academic career, just to go back after a couple of years and just have a good learning experience. Within the first 6 months, I fell in love with the job. It was very different. It was different speed. The ability to have an impact was greater. And when the position opened in university, I decided to stay with Pfizer. And that was the beginning of a 28 years career, 3 of which I spent in Greece and 25 internationally.
That's wonderful. In the last almost 2 years, you've really become an international celebrity. And I know there's been a lot of public exposure. You've been on the cover of Bloomberg. You've been the subject of articles in the Wall Street Journal. We discussed you're going to be honored by the Atlantic Council, and you're going to have many other honors. How has this affected you or your life to have all of this public exposure?
It complicated my life, to say the truth, because it's not that it bothers me. I like the fact that I'm talking to very interesting people, like you, for example, today, and I have discussions. But also that when the spotlight of publicity are on you, then they start, there are other people that they will start digging around the lives of your family, and that creates a little bit of concerns that I never thought I would ever have to worry about, and I do now.
Yeah, but it's wonderful that you're willing to tell your personal story as well as the story behind Pfizer and the development of the vaccine. I know people are very much interested in your personal story because it's compelling and it's unusual.
Yes, in that spirit, let me tell you once more a little bit the story of Moise and Sarah Borla. Our families were living in Thessalonic, and Thessaloniki received the Jews, had Jews, by the way, since the very ancient years, but very small community. Received a very big bulk of Sephardic Jews when they were expelled from Spain during the King Ferdinando and Queen Isabella, and then during Second World comes, and then the Germans occupied the city, and all the Jews eventually they had to move to a ghetto. They had to leave their homes and move to a ghetto, and over there, in a house that was meant for a family, they were living 6 or 7 families together, were packed. But then they could go in and out without problem from the ghetto. And one day, my parent and my father and his brother were outside the ghetto. And when they returned, they saw that the Germans had surrendered the ghetto, and they were blocking the exit. You can go in, but you couldn't get out. And they met their father, who was standing outside. He was also outside, and told them that not good news, everybody will move to a camp, and we are moving to Poland by train. And he told them, leave, go, don't come in, you go. And they said, what about you? And then he said, what about me? He couldn't leave because his wife and 2 other kids were inside. So he had to go back, and what he did. And then that evening, the whole group of Jews started marching all the way to the train station. And my father and his brother would be on the side of the road, just having eye contact with the parents and the other 2 brothers. And then that was the last time that they saw them. They went to Auschwitz, and my father and brother, they went to hiding. They had fake IDs, and that's how they survived. The story of my mother is even more emotional because she was a teenager at the time, and her sister had married a Christian. So she had converted to Christianity to marry, and at the time that was considered a crime, so it was not acceptable. Mixed marriages. So my grandfather wouldn't talk to her. So he said, for me, you're dead, I don't want to see. So she was living in a different city. Again, the family moved to ghetto, and now it's becoming clear that it's not far the day that they will all go to Poland, because that was the rumor. So he decided to call her to come and visit him. And she came back, and they met, and they hugged, and they kissed, and they made peace again. And she accepted her back. And she told her that, look, we are all living with your brothers and their families and your mom, but what I want is you take Sarah with you. She's young for that trip. She stays with you, and I will write you, we'll meet again. And this is what happened. My mother went to her sister in another city, and the family left, and they never came back. During now this period, she had to stay inside because people could recognize her. But she was a teenager, so she would venture outside here and there. And towards the end of the war, she was spotted and arrested by the Germans. And they didn't have any more trains to the camps. So she was put into jail, and in the prison. So every day her sister would go outside the prison because it was well known that at noon they would load prisoners to a truck, and they were moving it to an execution, let's say, place where next dawn would be executed. So during that time, my beloved Christian uncle, he paid basically everything that they had to Merton, who was a war criminal. He was the head of the Nazi occupation forces over there, so to spare her life. So the deal was, don't execute her, and that's all the golden pounds, English golden pounds. This is how they were paying that time. And but one day, my mother was loaded to the truck, and her sister thought that that's it. So she ran back to the husband. The husband called Merton. He shamed him. I pay you, you didn't do it. He had no idea what happened, and to make a long story short, the next day my mother is in front of a firing squad, and then a BMW motorbike comes, and with a paper that gives to the head of the fire squad, and he removes 2 people from the line, my mother and another woman, and while they were leaving back to prison, they heard the machine guns executing the rest. So that's the story of them. Eventually they met after the war, and in an arranged meeting, they liked each other. They decided to to make a life, and they made me and my sister.
My parents escaped from the Netherlands, where there was a large Jewish population also expelled from Spain during the Inquisition, and they were Holocaust survivors. Not all of their family were, and they settled in New York, but they would not speak of it. And I didn't speak of it until I went to the Netherlands, and people wanted to know the story. So we appreciate that. How do you think that experience of your parents affected their view of their community or of life in general? How do you think it affected them?
I think greatly. I think both of them, because of that, they became different people. And it was different, I think, for the two of them. My father became way more careful. My father's big trauma was that he saw a lot of Jews trying to hide and being not able to do it because they had an accent. Or because they couldn't speak very good Greek. So he wanted to make sure that nothing happens like that, and he was obsessed with Israel because he always felt that Israel is the safe harbor. If something happens, now we have it. But he was more conservative. My mom became very optimistic out of this experience. So the fact that he was certain he's going to die, and then she didn't just spare of a moment. Make her telling me when I would complain, for example, I don't know, this is difficult, I don't know how, I think it's done now. Said, never say it's done. It's never done before the end. You should go and try. I was in front of the firing squad and I survived. Go and try. And so she had this optimism for life. Nothing is impossible. That was my mom. Nothing is impossible.
Isn't that wonderful? And bitterness?
Zero. From both of them, and we are very lucky because I know also other people that, rightly so, they would, let's say, be very bitter, but they never taught us how to hate those that they did to us, or don't speak to Germans, or nothing of that. That's our story, and what is the moral of the story? Life is a miracle. We were almost dead, and now we have you. Look at that.
So, did that affect your attitude towards the development of the vaccine when the COVID pandemic began? Did it influence you, do you think?
Like everyone, family and the family, let's say, environment shapes a lot of what you are. And they made me kind of an optimistic, I always see the glass half full, not half empty. Now, that, I think, made me, during my professional life as well, to behave in a certain way. So I would take risks. I wouldn't be, let's say, suicidal in the way that I take risks, but I would take risks. And I would try to think big rather than think incremental. And I think that helped also to take the big risky decisions that we had to make during the COVID. But it was not the only time.
Yeah, I'm sure. You've been quoted as saying that you felt a tremendous pressure when all of this happened with COVID and the development of the vaccine, that people were investing a lot of hopes in you. Do you still feel that pressure?
Oh, yes. And I feel the same pressure now because we need to stay ahead of the virus. We need always to be a step ahead because it's... I'm following it every 1 or 2 months we have news with this virus. Not all of them goes out, but we do have news. Eventually, everything is under control right now, but you need to make sure that if something pops up, let's say a variant that it is more difficult to control, you are already ready to make sure that that will not become an issue, that you will be preventing it.
Yeah. So have things changed, do you think, permanently for the better because of this experience in the rapid development and manufacture and distribution of this vaccine? Do you think that processes are permanently changed?
I don't think we can declare victory, but I'm hopeful that they will have a significant impact. Because everybody is wondering right now, if we were able to do that with COVID, why not with cancer?
Yeah, I was going to ask.
And And clearly, why do we have to wait 3 months for an answer for a question in oncology drug? If we could get it, let's say, maybe not 3 days, but let's say 3 weeks. And I think the fact that by doing that we had so positive impact should motivate us and regulators and every stakeholder to revisit their processes and their resources, because they will need more resources, and do the right thing.
Well, I'll bet on you, Dr. Borla.
Oh, thank you.
You know, the Weinberg Foundation is very much supporting communities, and we did a lot to support communities during the COVID crisis. And I know that this is also on your mind, and we're very pleased that you were nominated for the Genesis Award, which many people view as the Jewish Nobel Prize. What was your reaction when you learned you had been shortlisted for this wonderful honor, and what would you do if you do win this prize? What would you do with it?
I was speechless. I never expected it, and I felt grateful for being in the list together with the other nominees. They are exceptional Jewish personalities, right? Leaders, people that they stood out through excellence in everything they did. Each one of them. So I was speechless, grateful, and that's what I told them. Now, what am I going to do if I win? I would be grateful if I win. There is an award which is very significant. It's $1 million that comes together with the prize. What I want to do is if I win, is to give this to build a Holocaust museum in Thessalonic. It's almost unbelievable that in a city that almost half of the population was Jewish, and then the entire population eliminated in the Holocaust, we don't have a museum for the Holocaust. It's already now designed and agreed, the place, and actually the place that will be built is in the train station that at the time they took the Jews and moved them out to Auschwitz, and I think works will start pretty soon. Next year, they will start building.
That's really wonderful. That's really wonderful. I know you have a number of volunteer commitments. Can you share with us which one of those or all of those are important to you and why you chose what you did?
There is a role that we all have to play when we are CEOs of large corporations, and we must use, let's say, the power that we have through this position and the power that we have to influence things, to give a positive spin to things in society. And Catalyst, for example, is an organization that it is working tirelessly to bring, let's say, equality between men and women in all aspects of life, but also in the workplace. And I felt that that's a very, very, very important mission to be able to support it. We have, let's say, all these events of racial injustice that they started this year with, we had with African Americans and with Asian people, that they truly suffered. Before was with all the Latinos because of the immigration, then suddenly became for Muslims. So it's always, let's say, we have people that they singled out because of the race or what they represent rather than anything else, and that's completely acceptable. We should speak up, and it is our role as leaders. So that's why I'm so actively involved.
Many people who will be watching this afternoon are accomplished leaders themselves in government, in business, in nonprofits. And I think they would appreciate hearing what you think has influenced you the most in your own career development and what advice you would give to the younger people starting in their careers.
I'll tell you that one thing that worked for me very well, and I would never do it differently, was that I was not obsessed with my career. So when I was in a position, I was not focusing what would be my next. And I see people that they are planning for 3 or 4 jobs. This is what I want eventually to do and what I need to do to go there. And frankly, a lot of the HR people, they taught me this is what I should be doing. I never did. I think less planning for the future and way more focus on how to do something impactful, transformational in the current job, and irrelevant if you're a secretary or if you are a director of a big group, that applies. Everything that you do, you can make it better. And the second thing that I would offer as an advice is, in my career, maybe I have seen people that they love what they do and didn't become very successful, but I've never seen the opposite. I've never seen anyone successful but didn't like what he or she was doing. So the advice is, don't choose something that you think will help you in your career. Choose something that you truly like and love.
That's wonderful advice. Wish I had heard that earlier, maybe in my career. Is there anything you know now that you wish you had known when you were starting your career with Pfizer?
A ton of things. And actually, I feel that every year, at the end of the year, I'm a better manager than in the beginning. I feel that at the end of 20, I was a better CEO than the beginning of 20. And I feel in the end of 21, I'm the better. And actually, the year that I will feel that I didn't improve and I stayed what I was, I think will be the signal for me that it's time to go.
Well, I hope that's not for a very long time, because
I hope as well.
you've inspired many people, and thank you so much again for your time. Is there anything else that you would like to say to our audience that is listening to us?
I'm thankful for all the messages of gratitude that we are receiving, and I feel that in my face or in me, I just represent the work of thousands of people that without it, without the self-sacrifices, it wouldn't be possible. I tried to enable them, but they did the job. So I think I want everyone to know that.
Thank you. I think that's a very eloquent of saying how we feel about the people at the Weinberg Foundation with whom we work and who do the work. We make the grants, but they do the work. They do the hard work, and so we are appreciative of your thoughts as well. Thank you very much, Dr. Borla. It's really been a pleasure and an honor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Faye and Dr. Borla. We are sorry this event was not in person so that you also might have had the opportunity to meet Dr. Borla, but we hope you learned about his extraordinary personal journey and his professional leadership style through the conversation he and Faye shared with all of us. As you know, life is always in transition in one way or another, and the Weinberg Foundation will be undergoing its own important changes next year in senior leadership. I would like to take a moment to share this news with you this afternoon. 3 senior leaders will be retiring from the Weinberg Foundation next year. Jonathan Hook will retire as the Foundation's Chief Investment Officer in September 2022. And at that time, I am pleased to share David Gilmore, currently serving as the Foundation's Deputy Chief Investment Officer, will be promoted to CIO. Since joining the Foundation in 2014, Jonathan has overseen the growth of the Foundation's assets from $2.1 billion to now exceeding $3.2 billion, an increase of more than 50%. As a result, the Foundation's grant making has grown accordingly and substantially, and the Foundation expects to award $140 million next year in grants. Jonathan served as the first internal CIO of the Foundation, and he leaves an impressive legacy and footprint. Jonathan, thank you. Thank you for taking the risk to come to the Foundation. Thank you for building a strong, stable, and successful investment team and portfolio. We are very grateful. And David, congratulations. Our second announcement today is that Craig Demcheck will retire as Chief Communications Officer next October, and we will announce Craig's successor in the coming months. Since joining the foundation in 2010, Craig has led the modernization and the growth of all of the ways in which the foundation's work is shared, both internally and externally. Craig, thank you for your creativity, your excellence in all that you do, your sense of humor at all times, your sharing of weather reports, and the way you lead with genuine kindness every day. Finally, some exciting news regarding the Foundation's Hawaii office. Corbett Kalama will retire as Executive Vice President of the Hawaii office at the end of 2022, just over a year from now. Corbett began his tenure with the Foundation in 2013 as Vice President of Real Estate Investments and Community Affairs. And for 3 decades before Corbett joined the Foundation, he worked as a senior executive with First Hawaiian Bank, and in that professional role, Corbett had a close working relationship with all of us from the Foundation. As a result of Corbett's departure, we are excited to announce 2 promotions within the Hawaii office. Giorgio Calderon, Managing Director of Hawaii Real Estate, will assume the role of Vice President, Hawaii Operations and Real Estate. And Marisa Hayase, Program Director, Hawaii Office, will assume the new role of Managing Director, Hawaii Programs and Communications. Next December, we look forward to a proper celebration to wish Corbett a heartfelt mahalo for all he has done for the Foundation and for the community, and to welcome Giorgio and Marisa into their new leadership roles. We offer our deepest thanks to all 3 of our senior leaders, John, Craig, and Corbett, who are entering the next exciting chapters of their lives. We also extend our congratulations on these important internal promotions for David, Giorgio, and Marisa. I am proud that the Foundation is managing these transitions with plenty of time, with careful planning, and with internal advancement. My thanks and my congratulations to everyone. And now I have the pleasure of introducing our final speaker, who also happens to be a dear friend, Dr. Erica Brown, Associate Professor and Director of the Mayberg Center for Jewish Education and Leadership at the George Washington University. Please also see her bio on the Foundation's website where you are watching this live stream.
It's a gift to be able to present a few thoughts to you this evening, to the Weinberg Foundation, a foundation very close to my heart, with special gratitude to Rachel Monroe for being a remarkable friend and colleague, and having a vision to take this organization to places that I could never imagine it would go. I want to think with you for a minute about a talk that I heard when I was 18 and has subsequently influenced me my whole life. I was in Jerusalem and a rabbi was speaking, and he was sharing observations on Genesis, the biblical book that we're currently reading. And he talked about an amazing passage where Jacob has a dream about a ladder. And on the ladder, there are angels going up and down between heaven and earth. That was Jacob in the early parts of his leadership career, not yet knowing all that was in store for him. Later on in his life, after 20 years of being exploited as a worker, he has another dream. And it's the dream that no one remembers, or at least no one talks about. And it's the dream of spotted and speckled sheep that are being bred. And it's strange to think about the dreams that he had as a young man and the dreams that he had as a middle-aged man and how they had changed. And this rabbi suggested that when he was a young man, he had this bountiful vision of his connection between heaven and earth, of being grounded, but also being holy, of striving for more, of having greater aspirations. But sometimes through the vicissitudes of life and being worn down by expectations and perhaps jaded by those who didn't share any kinds of heroic longings, Jacob had different kinds of dreams. And it was at that point that an angel, so to speak, taps him on the shoulder and says, "It's time to go home. It's time to go back to your original dreams." I want to share a biblical dream that I know is very important to the foundation and important to all of you. In the book of Deuteronomy, in chapter 15, it says outright, Ephes ki lo yeh b'cha evyon. There will be no needy among you. God is blessing you and giving you this land. And so the aspiration, the dream, the statement, which is point blank, is that there will be no needy person among you. But then only a few verses later, it says, when there is a needy person among you, and mandates that we give charitably and open-handedly with love and generosity. How is it that you begin in this chapter saying there'll be no needy among you, and then later on you say, well, when there is someone needy among you? I think the text is actually giving all of us an aspiration, and that is in the charitable work that we do, maybe we don't dream big enough. Maybe we aren't on that ladder of aspiration and climbing up one rung after another to the highest possible point. Maybe we think, I'll make a dent. I'll change things a little bit. When what the text is saying is, no, to be a radical revolutionary in this space is to imagine that there is no poverty, that there is no need, that we have been able, by a force of collaboration and goodwill, to eliminate all of the vulnerabilities of this planet. And I think Deuteronomy in some respects reflects the wider vision of what the Weinberg Foundation has tried to achieve over decades, not only to chip away in a small way at the problems that we have, but to dream in the biggest possible way of what it means to eradicate poverty altogether, suggesting, in the words of Pete Davis's new book, Dedicated, a wonderful book written to millennials, but I think has lessons for all of us on what does it mean to be a long haul hero? What does it mean to actually say, not only do I have this aspiration, not on this night, but on every night and every day, so that for decades, I will work towards the amelioration of social problems. And so my blessing for you this evening, and it's a blessing, first of all, for the Weinberg Foundation to continue its good works, and for all of you out of strength to continue yours. But really, it's the blessing that all of us aspire to much larger dreams, to set the bar even higher, to walk up one rung of inspiration and aspiration to the next, and to really be the long haul heroes that our problems need for this moment. It's not hard to see crisis everywhere. It's not hard to open up the newspaper and be depressed. But when you look around at all of the good works, it's hard not to be elevated and say, I want to be part of the solution. But more than I want to be part of the solution, I want to have larger dreams and look back on my life and the legacy of my contribution as really the top of that ladder that connects heaven and earth, that sanctifies us and makes our dreams holier and bigger. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Erica, for the gift of your words and wisdom. The pandemic has forced us to rethink the way we do many things. While we look forward to resuming in-person community celebrations as soon as possible, from this point forward, the biennial community gathering held in Baltimore will always be hybrid, with a live stream option, so that the Foundation's friends in Israel, Hawaii, and across the nation will be able to participate in this event. In closing, I offer a toast to our next gathering, in person and celebrating even better, healthier days ahead. We wish everyone safety, peace, and joy in the coming months as we hopefully move beyond COVID and continue to address the many challenges facing our nation and world. I'm reminded of the words of Maya Angelou. We may encounter many defeats, but we must not be defeated. Thank you for all you do to practice justice and mercy and fill the world with acts of loving kindness. Thank you.